Welcome back, mathletes, to another episode of Math with Dr. Math. As you could see here, we're going to look at factoring by grouping. So we're going to factor by grouping. And when do you use this? All right, so this technique we're going to use when we have four terms. All right, so just like here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Remember, terms are always separated by a plus or minus, even on Sundays. All right. So here's the big idea. All right. We're going to look at the first two and we're going to see what is the greatest common factor. What do they have in common? That's what we're looking at. And then we're going to look at the second two and we're going to say, what do they have in common? That's the way I like to think about it. So let's start with those first two terms. So think about 6 and 21. What's the biggest number you could divide both of those by? And hopefully you see that it's 3. And that might take some time as you're getting used to this. And then we're also seeing what letter do they have in common. In this case, they have the A in common, so we'll factor out the A. All right, and you always pull out the smallest exponent that's associated with that variable. And we'll see some examples of that. And that's all those two have in common. So I'll put my parentheses. And we're going to see, okay, what do we have left over? So the way I want you to think about this is 3 times what gives me that 6. So of course 3 times the 2. We had this A, but we factored it out, right? You pulled it out, so that A is no longer there. So I do not need an A. And I have this B. Notice we didn't factor out the B, so we need to leave the B right there. All right, so our first term, we have to be or not to be. All right, so there's our first piece. Minus, right? So 3 times what? 3 times what's going to give us the 27? So we see that we have 7. Again, we had an A, but we factored out the A, so we no longer need the A there. And notice, 3A times negative 7, 3A times negative 7 does give us negative 21A. So this should always make sense. All right, so there should be no guessing. This should make sense. All right, let's continue the march. I have 4B and 14. What do these two have in common? What's the biggest number I could divide by? And if you heard the person behind you be nosy, they said 2. So we'll factor out the 2. All right. And so when we factor out the 2, ultimately we're dividing by 2. So 4B divided by 2 leaves us with 2B, or not to be again, minus, and we have 7. And what we're going to see generally start to take place is our factors, these terms are going to have these two factors usually the same. These are cookbook, so these two are usually, not all the time, but usually going to be the same. So you ask yourself, what do they have in common? Well, they have the 2B minus 7 in common, so we factor that out, right? Because that's what they have in common. And then you ask yourself, well, what's left? If I were to take out the 2B from each one of those minus 7, what do you have left? Well, you could see you have the 3A left, and you have the plus 2 left. So we have just found these mother factors, right? There's factor 1 and factor 2. And you always check, do these guys have anything in common? Nope. Do these two have anything in common? Nope. And that's how you, my friends, know that you are done. So that is how we are going to look at this idea of factoring by grouping. All right. So go ahead and press pause. Hit that donate button. I'm just kidding. You're going to go ahead and you're going to try. I got a problem right here for you to try. All right, so take your time, press pause, use the same idea, and in the link, if you click right here, I'm not that cool, I wish I could do that, but if you go down in the description, I'll have a link for you, and you could check your answers after you try this. All right, let's do another example, though. Let's do another example. All right, example 2. All right, go ahead, and there I am. I'm back. All right, again, check, do we have 4 terms? Do we have uno, dos, tres, cuatro? And we do. All right, So again, same idea, getting this practice. We look at what do these two have in common? And what do these two have in common? There's one thing that's a little bit different about this problem. So it's exciting. Let's check it out. So if we see that these two both have, the first two terms have an x in common. But what we said earlier is you pull out the smallest x. All right, so in this case, it's x squared. All right, so we have this, we always pull out the smallest exponent. So this one's, we have x squared. So the way I have people think about this, even though all my math nerds are going to get a little upset, that's okay. That's okay. They could get a little upset at me because I help people understand. All right. So notice we have three x's here, x times x times x. We factored out two of them, right? We had three. We factored out two of them. So how many do we have left? Uno, just one. All right. And when we multiply x squared times x, that gives us the x cubed that we wanted, right? X squared times x. All you do is add the exponents. Bam. All right. Plus the 3, right? Because that 3 hasn't changed. And notice I started off with x squared. X times x. Two of these x's being multiplied. But I factored both of them out. So I no longer need an x right here. And again, if you distribute, if you multiply, it better give you back what you started. Boom. All right. What we always want to do here is factor out whatever sign is right here. So if that's a minus sign, boom, you're bringing down that minus, right? That minus sign, you bring it down right there. And you ask yourself, what does the 3 and the 9 have in common? Well, I could factor out a 3. And you are left with x plus 3. People might be, wait, where'd that plus 3 come from? Notice, you had a negative 9, but you factored out, you divided by negative 3. So negative 9 divided by negative 3, boom, positive 3. And once again, just like we noted earlier, right, they both these terms have this same factor of x plus 3. So let's go ahead and let's factor out the x plus 3 because that's what they share. And what are we left with? Well, we are left with the x squared minus 3. X squared minus 3. And I just verify and make sure I can't factor anything out. They have nothing in common. These two have nothing in common. And that is how you know that you are finished. All right, so once again, I have a practice problem right here for you. And you try that one. And again, I have the solution down in the link. Because the only way that you're going to get better at this, the only way for you to grow is for you to struggle and you to try these on your own, right? Watching me is just not even half the battle, right? 10% of the battle. You making mistakes, that's what's ultimately going to lead you to success. So my friends, until next time, we'll see you on another episode of Math with Dr. Math.